Welcome back to the OCAD Sports Report. I'm your host, Avishai Sol, and this is a very special episode right here. Why is it a very special episode? Because this is the first episode of Season 6 of OCAD Live and the first episode of Season 4 of the OCAD Sports Report. Season 4, of course, sadly, unfortunately, but also sort of in a happy way too, being the last season of the OCAD Sports Report, at least with me hosting. Why is that? It's because I'm graduating. And, you can't be in school forever, but we'll have a good cry about it later. Here's what I want to tell you. I'm changing my stance a little bit of the direction of this season because I want to make the most of every episode I have left, which means I'm going to talk about the fuck I want to talk about, and you guys can be along for the ride. It's going to be a little less breaking the sports news of the week and a little more just talking about topics I enjoy talking about, whether it's in the future, the present, or the past, and just having fun, talking sports with me. I think it's going to be a great season. We have a lot to talk about in the world of sports. Let's get to it. We're going to start in the world of MMA because we have one of the biggest fights of the past 10 years on its way. I'm recording this before the fight actually happens, so you'll know the results before I talk about them, but I want to give you context, and I still think I'll be able to paint a picture of sort of what's at stake. We have Jon Jones going up against Cyril Gane. If you recognize one of those names, it'll be Jon Jones, because Jon Jones is one of the greatest MMA fighters, one of the greatest fighters just period. He's had an entire decade of absolute dominance at the light heavyweight division, and he sort of stands himself as sort of unquestionably top 3 MMA fighters of all time. It's a young professional sport in the grand scheme of things, but even still. Now, of course, I'm partial to our Canadian friend, George St. Pierre, but that's a whole nother discussion. It's a whole nother discussion, but we may be having it this coming week because Jon Jones is making his sort of semi-triumphant return to the octagon. Jones, for all of his success in the ring, has had sort of mixed results outside of it because he's gone through a number of personal sort of problems, whether it's domestic violence or auto crime or testing positive for banned substances. We love rooting for a star of his caliber, but it's more difficult when we know what kind of stuff he gets up to in his personal life. That said, he can sort of put any questions about his in-ring ability to bed with a victory here. He hasn't fought in 3 years. He was at light heavyweight for the majority of his career. He's now moved up to heavyweight. This will undoubtedly go down as one of the most pivotal moments of his career because it'll prove whether or not he's still got it and whether or not he still cares. You got a question about a fighter who gets into all that stuff outside of the octagon if he's really putting his career at the top of his priority list. But with a win here, he can cement his status as maybe the greatest MMA fighter ever. He has the pedigree, and he can certainly prove it with this upcoming fight. Now moving on to the world of hockey, where we've had the trade deadline this past week. Some huge trades. I'm going to get into sort of a couple of them, focusing more on the Maple Leafs because we are in Toronto and that's what we do. But we're going to start off with the New York Rangers because before this trade deadline, they were one of the top tier teams in the NHL. They were threatening to win the whole thing. They have Zibanejad, they have Panarin, they have all of these, Lafreniere, they have great talent on the front end and the back end, and it just got better because they acquired star Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane is a big name. Now before you freak out, note that Kane's had a bit of a rocky season. He's an older player now, and he's bound to decline as he ages. But here's why New York fans are still willing to smile as widely as they are, speaking their New York ways about how they're going to win the thing and do the stuff with the George Washington or whatever. It's because Patrick Kane will be playing a reduced role. He'll be down to 15 minutes a game instead of 20, and that kind of short burst energy, especially with a player of his talent level, goes a long way. What's coming into question is not his skills, but sort of whether or not he can continue to maintain them at the pace he was playing at. And now he doesn't have that problem. He can just focus on putting his best shifts together in the time that he's provided. But the Leafs made trades of their own this trade deadline, acquiring defenseman Lucas Shen and Sam Lafferty. Both guys improve the back line of the Leafs roster. Lafferty, sort of an offensive defenseman. Shen, this big burly guy enforcing the front line. But it didn't stop there. They also acquired Jake McCabe and Ryan O'Reilly. O'Reilly especially is an interesting acquisition because he is, of course, a former star who's in a similar situation to Kane, although not of the same quality as Kane. You can't deny the playoff pedigree and the experience and the skills that still exist. You don't forget how to play. And it's a similar situation that in a reduced role, he may be able to succeed more than he was before. What this is here is the Leafs shifting their roster. They made a lot of trades this season for some big names and some great pieces, but what they're doing is moving towards a more veteran-laden roster. They are building a playoff team. They have their stars. They have Matthews and Marner. They have Nylander in the second line. They have scoring skills. They have offense. They acquire a goalie now. And what this trade deadline was piecing together the glue guys. The guys who will make the hustle play, who play smart, who don't make the mistakes in the playoffs when everything tightens up that young players might. And as a Leafs fan, you see the Rangers acquiring Kane and you may be quaking in your boots, but don't worry about it because it's the little things and the roster from the top down that wins playoff series. Now moving on to the NBA's trade deadline, where we've had a lot of action as well. Starting off with the Brooklyn Nets, who, surprise, surprise, exploded. They had Kevin Durant, they had James Harden, they had Kyrie Irving. What could go wrong? Everything, and it did. They decided that they were done with this circus. They traded Kevin Durant to the Phoenix Suns in a big move that saw one of the bigger trade returns in the history of the NBA going back to Brooklyn, and Kyrie Irving to the Dallas Mavericks, which saw similar picks, although at a lesser degree because Irving had sabotaged his own career to the point where he's no longer demanding superstar assets. Let's focus on Kyrie to start. I'm not going to talk about all of his antics and how much I dislike his sort of approach to professional athletics because I've said that before. I'm not going to top it. I rewatched that segment. Yes, I rewatched my own content, and I was right. But from a practical standpoint, the Dallas Mavericks acquire Kyrie Irving. Now, he's an expiring contract, which means he could just leave to go to another team in the offseason. Dallas would be left with their dick in their hands. But for the short term, Luka Doncic is having one of the greatest offensive seasons of the past 20 years. And if you're not doing your best to maximize that, then he'll start to get pissed at the front office and want out, right? So you got to at least look like you're trying. And for all of his faults, Kyrie Irving is a genius offensive player. So in the short term, you know, if you're Dallas, take a swing. What do you got to lose? What did you really give up in the trade? A couple picks? Dinwiddie? Finney Smith? You're worried about your defense? It's not even like you were that good defensively anyway. The Durant deal has a lot more big picture playoff consequences because Durant is as good as he ever was. He is capable of being the best player on a championship team. And in Phoenix, he's now backed up by Devin Booker, who's simultaneously one of the best offensive talents in the world. Chris Paul, who's old and not as good as he was, but is still a Hall of Fame point guard who can set the table and knows how to put it together in the playoffs before he inevitably gets a knee injury. And then DeAndre Ayton, who's been disappointing this season, but has shown real talent at times and, you know, in a reduced role in the dunker spot, playing with the spacing of Durant and Booker, you know, he'll be fine. The Suns just started implementing Durant into their active rotation, and we're yet to see if they're as good as they look on paper. But on paper, they look like they're the best team in the league. So, some other notable trades. The Golden State Warriors finally said, screw it, we're done with James Wiseman, and Detroit scooped him up, which, like, on the one hand, like, James Wiseman hasn't been good, but also he's young and was talented at one point, and Detroit's like, hey, we don't care about winning, let's try him. The Knicks got Josh Hart, which is a sort of subtle role player acquisition, but Josh Hart at times has been like an elite role player, and the Knicks so far have loved him. He's slotted in really well next to Brunson and Randall. There's a video circulating because Hart and Brunson played together in college, and they're like really tight, and it was adorable.
Oh shit! Josh Hart. Yes!
It was adorable. The Toronto Raptors acquired Jakob Poeltl, which was sort of a weird move, and I don't want to talk too much about it. I know we're Toronto-centric, and the Raptors making a trade is nothing to skate over, but I think I can get through this quickly. Basically, everybody thought the Raptors were going to blow it up. They were going to trade OG Anunoby, maybe Gary Trent, maybe Fred VanVleet, maybe even Pascal Siakam, and start over with Scotty Barnes as the focal point. Instead, they zagged the other way, acquiring an established player like Jakob Poeltl, who's not a star, but very valuable role player, able to run to the rim, possession, protect the basket, and grab rebounds. And it looks like they're going to try to make a push for the playoffs, which you got to wonder strategically if that's in your best interest, but also, like, I mean, I don't know, maximize your talent short term. So the acquisition of Pirtle is undoubtedly improving the team. It was a position we needed help at, the 5-man. But also, how good does it really make us? Like, maybe we can make the playoffs and then get crushed in the first round? Like, who cares? I'd rather have a lottery pick. We'll wait and see. All that said, I trust Masai Ujiri. But the last big trade in the NBA circles, well, it was actually a couple trades. The Los Angeles Lakers somehow managed, against all the odds, to fix their roster. Trading away Russell Westbrook to the Utah Jazz, they got back defensive stopper Jared Vanderbilt, who quietly was one of the best free agent acquisitions of the entire trade deadline because of the role he's able to play, backing up LeBron and AD, doing the dirty work, hitting open shots, and providing an energy at the forward position. They also got offensive sort of star D'Angelo Russell, who I don't really like. He's sort of an all offense, no defense, laissez-faire. I'm going to dribble a lot and shoot a step back, but maybe he'll go in and blah, blah, blah. But like, he can score, he can pass, and it's better than Westbrook, who can pass. But it didn't stop there. The Lakers also got center Mohamed Bamba from the Orlando Magic. You all remember the song, who is a lob threat and can hit an open jumper. Malik Beasley, who's an elite shooter. So the Lakers didn't get any one star unless I guess Russell made an all-star team once, but he's not really an all-star. But they fixed their roster around LeBron and AD. All the Lakers trade rumors are always centered around stars. Karl Anthony Towns, Damian Lillard, DeMar DeRozan, Bradley Beal. And that's not what they needed. They have LeBron and AD. You don't need more star power. What you need is to create a great ecosystem around them. That's how they won the title in 2020. Focusing a little bit on Russell Westbrook, he didn't have to move. He went to the Clippers, also in LA, and he's going to stink it up over there. Those poor Clippers, man. Remember when we thought they were going to be good? I don't even care about them. But we're going to finish this lovely, lovely episode. This week's Athlete of the Week. This week's Athlete of the Week is Steve.
Hello.
Yeah. Why are you Athlete of the Week, Steve?
Because I run, I walk, I swim, very sporty. What else do I say?
No, that's fine. All right, get out of here. This has been the OCAD Youth Sports Report. I am your host, Avishai Saul, and I will see you all next week.